For a long time, no one pulling the strings in the comedy world thought that a woman over 50 from rural Tennessee could make it in the industry. But Leanne Morgan has defied the odds, reaching millions with her musings on hormones, low-rise britches, Weight Watchers, and her opposites-attract relationship with her husband Chuck. In her charming Southern accent, Morgan brings listeners inside her quest to find her voice, after spending many years trying to figure out what that meant. Along the way, we learn how she grew up as a butcher's daughter, landed a husband with health insurance, honed her stand-up technique selling jewelry at house parties, embraced the glories of aging, and surrendered to the comfort of wearing big flesh-tone panties. Equal parts warm and hilarious, this book is a must-listen by one of comedy's rising stars, reminding you that every time life leaves you asking what in the world, something good is bound to come out of it someday. Aside from the fact that they are brothers, Peter and Ivan Cowbeck seem to have little in common. Peter is a Dublin lawyer in his 30s, successful, competent, and apparently unassailable. But in the wake of their father's death, he's medicating himself to sleep and struggling to manage his relationships with two very different women. His enduring first love, Sylvia, and Naomi, a college student for whom life is one long joke. Ivan is a 22-year-old competitive chess player. He has always seen himself as socially awkward, a loner, the antithesis of his glib elder brother. Now, in the early weeks of his bereavement, Ivan meets Margaret, an older woman emerging from her own turbulent past, and their lives become rapidly and intensely intertwined. For two grieving brothers and the people they love, this is a new interlude, a period of desire, despair, and possibility, a chance to find out how much one life might hold inside itself without breaking. Tanner Hughes was raised by his grandparents, following in his grandfather's military footsteps to become an Army Ranger. His whole life has been spent abroad, and he is the proverbial Rolling Stone. Happiest when off on his next adventure, zero desire to settle down. But when his grandmother passes away, her last words to him are "Find where you belong." She also drops a bombshell, telling him the name of the father he never knew, and where to find him. Tanner is due at his next posting soon, but his curiosity is piqued, and he sets out for Ishiburo, North Carolina, to ask around. He's been in town less than 24 hours when he meets Caitlin Cooper, a doctor and single mom. They both feel an immediate connection. Tanner knows Caitlin has a story to tell, and he wants to hear it. To Caitlin, Tanner is mysterious, exciting, and possibly leaving in just a few weeks. Meanwhile, nearby 83-year-old Jasper lives alone in a cabin bordering a national forest. With only his old dog, Arlo, for company, he lives quietly, haunted by a tragic accident that took place decades before. When he hears rumors that a white deer has been spotted in the forest, a creature of legend that inspired his father and grandfather, he becomes obsessed with protecting the deer from poachers. As these characters' fates orbit closer together, none of them is expecting a miracle, but that may be exactly what is about to alter their futures forever. The Bobiverse is a different place in the aftermath of the Starfleet War, and the days of the Bobs gathering in one big happy mood are far behind. There's anti-Bob sentiment on multiple planets, the Skippies playing with an AI time bomb, and multiple Bobs just wanting to get away from it all. But it all pales compared to what Icarus and Daedalus discover on their 26,000-year journey to the center of the galaxy. Sure, it could settle the Fermi paradox for good, and what Bob doesn't want to solve a mystery of the universe? But it also reveals a threat to the galaxy greater than anything the Bobs could have imagined. Just another average day in the Bobiverse. Steve Wheeler is enjoying retired life. He still does the odd bit of investigation work, but he prefers his familiar routines, the pub quiz, his favorite bench, his cat waiting for him at home. His days of adventure are over. Adrenaline is daughter-in-law Amy's job now. Amy Wheeler thinks adrenaline is good for the soul. Working in private security, every day is dangerous. She's currently on a remote island protecting mega best-selling author Rosie D'Antonio, until a dead body and a bag of money mean trouble in paradise. So she sends and sows to the only person she trusts. As a thrilling race around the world begins, can Amy and Steve outrun and outsmart a killer? Solving murders. It's a family business. Today's conservatives know what they're against. They're anti-woke, anti-globalist, anti-big government. But what exactly do they stand for? The fact that this is a hard question to answer is a damning indictment of the modern Republican Party, which has abjectly failed to articulate an affirmative alternative to the left's vision. Ramaswamy calls on the conservative movement to articulate exactly what it stands for, or else warns of another illusory red wave in 2024. Vivek Ramaswamy is not a politician. He is a first-generation American, the founder of several successful companies, and a best-selling author. Ramaswamy decided he needed to step in the arena to stop the lies and tell the American people the truth. That's why he ran for president and became a leading voice in the America First movement. In Truths, The Future of America First, Ramaswamy shows exactly how honesty about the most important issues will get our country back on track. The America First movement emphasizes the issues that bring us together, not what divides us. It asks that we put our country over politics, merit over grievance, and truth over lies. Ramaswamy tells us the truth about our political system and the people who control it, and exhorts us to exercise our right to self-governance again. America First is bigger than any man or woman. It's a movement. In Truths, Vivek Ramaswamy explains exactly why that movement needs to succeed now more than ever. Our country's future depends on it. For the last 100,000 years, we sapiens have accumulated enormous power. But despite our discoveries, inventions, and conquests, we now find ourselves in an existential crisis. The world is on the verge of ecological collapse, misinformation abounds, and we are rushing headlong into the age of AI, a new information network that threatens to annihilate us. For all that we have accomplished, why are we so self-destructive? Nexus looks through the long lens of human history to consider how the flow of information has shaped us and our world, taking us from the Stone Age through the canonization of the Bible, early modern witch hunts, Stalinism, Nazism, and the resurgence of populism today. Yuval Noah Harari asks us to consider the complex relationship between information and truth, bureaucracy and mythology, wisdom and power. He explores how different societies and political systems throughout history have wielded information to achieve their goals, for good and ill. And he addresses the urgent choices we face as non-human intelligence threatens our very existence. Information is not the raw material of truth, neither is it a mere weapon. Nexus explores the hopeful middle ground between these extremes, and in doing so, rediscovers our shared humanity. Life is full of twists and turns you never see coming. But what if you did? The plane is jam-packed. Every seat is taken. So of course the flight is delayed. Flight attendant Allegra Patel likes her job. She's generally happy with her life, even if she can't figure out why she hooks up with a man she barely speaks to. But today is her 28th birthday. She can think of plenty of things she'd rather be doing than placating a bunch of grumpy passengers. There's the well-dressed man in seat 4C, who is compulsively checking his watch, desperate not to miss his 11-year-old daughter's musical. Further back, a mother of two is frantically trying to keep her toddler entertained and her infant son quiet. How did she ever think being a stay-at-home mom would be easier than being a lawyer? Ethan is lost in thought. He's flying back from his first funeral. A young couple has just gotten married. She's still wearing her wedding dress. An emergency room nurse is looking forward to traveling the world. Once she retires in a few years, it's going to be so much fun. If they ever get off the tarmac, suddenly a woman none of them know stands up. She makes predictions about how and when everyone on board will die. Some dismiss her. Others will do everything they can to make sure her prophecies do not come to pass. All of them will be forever changed. How would you live your life if you thought you knew how it would end? Would you love who you love or try to love someone else? Would you stay married? Would you stop drinking? Would you call up your ex-best friend you haven't spoken to in years? Would you quit your job? Intricately plotted, with the wonderful wit Leanne Moriarty has become famous for. Here One Moment brilliantly looks at friends, lovers, and family, and how we manage to hold on to them in our harried modern lives. For the record, Fred Trump never asked for any of this. The divisive politics, the endless headlines, a hijacked last name, the heat-seeking uncle, rising from real estate sign to gossip column fixture to The Apprentice, host to President of the United States. Fred just wanted a happy life and a satisfying career, but a fight for his son's health and safety forced him onto a center stage that he had never wanted. And now, at a crucial point for our nation, he is stepping forward again. In All in the Family, Fred delves into his journey to become a different kind of Trump, detailing his passionate battle to protect his wife and children from forces inside and outside the family. From the Trump house to the White House, Fred comes to terms with his own complex legacy and faces some demons head-on. It's a story of power, love, money, cruelty, and the unshakable bonds of family, played out underneath a glaring media spotlight. When his procrastination lands him in a difficult class with his least favorite professor, Henry Turner knows he's going to have to work extra hard to survive his junior year of college. And now with his new title of captain for the hockey team, which he didn't even want, Henry absolutely cannot fail. Enter Hallie Jacobs, a fellow junior who finds herself befriended by Henry when he accidentally crashes her book club. Hallie may not have the romantic pursuits of her favorite fictional leads, but she's an academic superstar, and as soon as she hears about Henry's problems with his class reading material, she offers to help. Too bad being a private tutor isn't exactly ideal given her own studies, job, book club, and the novel she's trying to write. But new experiences are the key to beating her writer's block, and Henry's promising to be the one to give them to her. Weston, Belmont. The man is a shameless flirt. He uses confidence and masculinity in a way that's downright distracting. And in bed, he's addictive. Everything with him is wild and impulsive, and I'm desperate to regain some control. But no one has supported me like Wes does. And no one has ever made me feel as loved as he does either. So, while my brain says settling down with a small-town horse trainer is impossible, my heart says I'm right where I belong. Still, my life as a celebrity haunts me. It has the power to pull us apart. I can see in his eyes that wants me to stay. And I want that too. But I know better than anyone that we don't always get what we want. The vibrant economy of the new Vietnam is a shiny lure for Western capital. Companies are racing to uncover ideal opportunities. Not wanting to be left behind, Henley Associates has sent their best analyst, Jack Ryan Jr., to mine for investment gold. And he may have found some in a rare earth mining company, Geotech, but a trip with a Henley colleague to the highlands to observe the company's operations takes a treacherous turn when their helicopter is shot down. Some things haven't changed, and Vietnam is still the plaything of powerful neighbors. The Chinese are determined to keep Jack from finding the truth about what exactly is being processed at the isolated factory. Now Jack is in a race for his life. He's got to stay one step ahead of a pack of killers while supporting his wounded friend. He'll get no help from the government, because in the jungle, it's the shadow state that rules. Creation Lake is a novel about a secret agent, a 34-year-old American woman of ruthless tactics, bold opinions, and clean beauty, who is sent to do dirty work in France. Sadie Smith is how the narrator introduces herself to her lover, to the rural commune of French subversives, on whom she is keeping tabs, and to the listener. Sadie has met her love Lucien, a young and well-born Parisian, by cold bump, making him believe the encounter was accidental. Like everyone Sadie targets, Lucien is useful to her and used by her. Sadie operates by strategy and dissimulation, based on what her contacts' shadowy figures in business and government instruct. First, these contacts want her to incite provocation. Then they want more. In this region of centuries-old farms and ancient caves, Sadie becomes entranced by a mysterious figure named Bruno Lacombe, a mentor to the young activists who communicates only by email. Bruno believes that the path to emancipation from what ails modern life is not revolt, but a return to the ancient past. Just as Sadie is certain she's the seductress and puppet master of those she surveils, Bruno Lacombe is seducing her with his ingenious counter-histories, his artful laments, his own tragic story. Written in short, vaulting sections, Rachel Kushner's rendition of noir is taut and dazzling. Creation Lake is Kushner's finest achievement yet as a novelist, a work of high art, high comedy, and unforgettable pleasure. April 2011. On a remote mountaintop overlooking the remains of the Iranian nuclear weapons program, Azad Ashani witnesses a Quds Force demonstration of a capability meant to upend America's war in the Middle East. Ashani, director of the Iranian Ministry of Intelligence and Security and Irene Kennedy's former backchannel to the Iranian government, recognizes the demonstration's true significance and the nation-ending conflict it will provoke. Alone, Ashani stands no chance of preventing this rush to madness, but with the help of one man, he just might. In Washington, D.C., CIA Director Irene Kennedy briefs the president that the operational window to kill or capture Osama bin Laden at his recently discovered compound in Abbottabad, Pakistan, is rapidly closing. But before he'll authorize a commando raid on Pakistani soil, the president demands irrefutable proof of bin Laden's presence. Proof he trusts just one man to provide. Preventing a looming war in the Middle East while delivering justice for the nearly 3,000 Americans killed on 9/11 would be a big ask for anyone. Mitch Rapp isn't just anyone. When, at age 46, Nancy Pelosi, mother of 5, asked her youngest daughter if she should run for Congress, Alexandra Pelosi answered, "Mother, get a life." And so Nancy did, and what a life it has been. In The Art of Power, Pelosi describes for the first time what it takes to make history, not only as the first woman to ascend to the most powerful legislative role in our nation, but to pass laws that would save lives and livelihoods, from the emergency rescue of the economy in 2008 to transforming healthcare. She describes the perseverance, persuasion, and respect for her members that it took to succeed, but also the joy of seeing America change for the better. Among the best prepared and hardest working speakers in history, Pelosi worked to find common ground, or stand her ground, with presidents from Bush to Biden. She also shares moving moments with soldiers sent to the front lines, women who inspired her, and human rights activists who fought by her side. Pelosi took positions that established her as a prophetic voice on the major moral issues of the day, warning early about the dangers of the Iraq War and of the Chinese government's long record of misbehavior. This moral courage prepared her for the arrival of Trump, with whom she famously tangled, becoming a red-coated symbol of resistance to his destructive presidency. Here, she reveals how she went toe-to-toe with Trump, leading up to January 6, 2021, when he unleashed his post-election fury on the Congress. Pelosi gives us her personal account of that day, the assault not only on the symbol of our democracy, but on the men and women who had come to serve the nation, never expecting to hide under desks or flee for their lives, and her determined efforts to get the National Guard to the Capitol. Nearly 2 years later, violence and fury would erupt inside Pelosi's own home when an intruder, demanding to see the speaker, viciously attacked her beloved husband Paul. Here, Pelosi shares that horrifying day and the traumatic aftermath for her and her family. The woman who has been lauded by her opposition as the most powerful speaker ever shows us why she is not afraid of a good fight. The Art of Power is about the fighting spirit that has always animated her, and the historic legacy that spirit has produced. Why do some people achieve all their goals, while others simply dream of having a better life? With more than 640,000 copies sold of this classic book on how to set and achieve goals, comes the newest edition by best-selling author and motivational speaker Brian Tracy. The path from frustration to fulfillment has already been discovered. Hundreds of thousands, even millions, of people started with nothing and achieved great success. In this audiobook, Tracy presents a simple, powerful, and effective system for setting and achieving goals. A method that has been used by more than 1 million people to achieve extraordinary things. Using the 21 strategies Tracy outlines, you'll be able to accomplish any goal you set for yourself. No matter how big, you'll discover how to determine your own strengths, what you truly value in life, and what you really want to accomplish in the years ahead. Tracy shows how to build your self-esteem and self-confidence, approach every problem or obstacle effectively, overcome difficulties, respond to challenges, and continue forward toward your goals, no matter what happens. Most importantly, you'll learn a system for achievement that you will use for the rest of your life. Step back inside the world of President Jed Bartlett's Oval Office with Fitzgerald and McCormack as they reunite the West Wing cast and crew in a lively and colorful backstage pass to the timeless series. This intimate, in-depth reflection reveals how the West Wing was conceived and spotlights the army of people it took to produce it, the lifelong friendships it forged, and the service it inspired. From cast member origin stories to the collective cathartic farewell on the show's final night of filming, what's next will delight listeners with on-set and off-camera anecdotes that even West Wing superfans have never heard. Meanwhile, a deeper analysis of the show's legacy through American culture, service, government, and civic life underscores how the series envisaged an American politics of decency and honor, creating an aspirational White House beyond the bounds of fictional television. What's Next revisits beloved episodes with fresh, untold commentary, compiles poignant and hilarious stories from the show's production, highlights initiatives supported by the cast, crew, and creators, and makes a powerful case for competent, empathetic leadership, hope, and optimism for whatever lies ahead. While Sarah is finally free of Collis and back with those she loves, not everything is calm. Memories of all she's endured still haunt her, but Sarah finally has hope for a future with the other half of her heart and soul. Nikto's desires, loves, and accepts every part of her, even the monstrous bits she still battles. More than ever, Sarah and Ash have everything under the realms to fight for, and Nikto's has no doubt Sarah is fit to be the queen of the gods. But she must find that faith within herself, if they hope to convince the other courts to support them against Collis and make Elysium and the mortal realm better, safer places for all. But as Sarah begins to piece together the importance of her bloodline and the true meaning behind the foreboding prophecy, it becomes clear that everything that has happened and is yet to come is much bigger than Collis and his dark obsessions. They cannot help but wonder exactly how much influence the fates have had and what their ultimate goal is. What Sarah does know for sure is that they can trust very few, including her. A battle between the gods is brewing, and heartbreaking losses are imminent, with the true primal of death strengthening. With a family of the heart willing to battle by their side, can Sarah and Nyktos stop Collis before he destroys the realms? Or will it all disappear in a fiery inferno of blood and ash? I want someone with a soul as black as night. Someone who would burn the world down for me and not lose a single minute of sleep over it. Trauma nurse Ailey Cappellucci doesn't need any more kinks. She likes the one she's landed on just fine. To her, nothing could top the masked men she follows online. Unless one of those men was shirtless, heavily tattooed, and waiting for her in her bedroom. She dreams about being hunted by one in particular, of him chasing her down and doing deliciously dark things to her willing body. She never could have guessed that by sending one drunken text. Those dreams would become her new reality. I want things most people don't, craving darkness and depravity instead of light and love. Josh Hammond has spent his life avoiding the limelight, but his online persona is another story. At night, he posts masked thirst traps for his millions of fans to drool over, but one follower has caught his eye. Ailey, after reading a comment begging him to break into her house wearing a mask, he decides to take her up on her offer. Together, Ailey and Josh live out their darkest fantasies, unaware that Ailey has captured the attention of someone else. Someone with far more sinister intentions than a little light stalking. As Josh turns from predator to protector and the stakes heighten, he must ask himself how far he's willing to go for the woman he's obsessed with. Lights Out is a fast-paced dark romance with a morally gray male lead. Some themes and scenes may be disturbing to listeners. Please check the TWs at the beginning of the book. It's a beautiful day in Newport, Rhode Island, when Phoebe Stone arrives at the Grand Cornwall Inn, wearing a green dress and gold heels, not a bag in sight, alone. She's immediately mistaken by everyone in the lobby for one of the wedding people, but she's actually the only guest at the Cornwall who isn't here for the big event. Phoebe is here because she's dreamed of coming for years. She hoped to shuck oysters and take sunset sails with her husband, only now she's here without him, at rock bottom, and determined to have one last decadent splurge on herself. Meanwhile, the bride is accounted for every detail, and every possible disaster the weekend might yield, except for, well, Phoebe and Phoebe's plan, which makes it that much more surprising when the two women can't stop confiding in each other. In turns absurdly funny and devastatingly tender, Alison Espach's The Wedding People is ultimately an incredibly nuanced and resonant look at the winding paths we can take to places we never imagined and the chance encounters it sometimes takes to reroute us. For Melanie Drake, school guidance counselor in a small Virginia town, the day's challenges typically involve a playground scuffle or a student skipping school. It's worlds away from her previous career as a vital part of the Office of Special Investigations. There, she devoted herself heart and soul to covert operations, the riskier the better. Since leaving the government, Melanie has cherished her peaceful, calm existence, with her two beloved retired service dogs for company. Then a call comes from her former supervisor, Rich Patterson. He needs her back for a highly specialized assignment. An international group of billionaires is known to meet regularly for decadent dinners, and they always hire high-class escorts for the occasion. Only the most elegant, well-educated, and sophisticated women will do. Infiltrating those meetings could yield information vital to national security. Melanie's loyalty is indisputable. She's willing to pose as an escort and glean every scrap of intel that she can. But these men aren't just wealthy and powerful, they're also exceptionally ruthless. One slip, and they won't hesitate to eliminate Melanie by any means necessary. Simon and Vicky couldn't seem more normal. A wealthy Chicago couple, he a respected law professor, she an advocate for domestic violence victims. A stable, if unexciting marriage. But one thing's for sure, absolutely nothing is what it seems. The pair are far from normal, and one of them just may be a killer. When the body of a beautiful socialite is found hanging in a mansion in a nearby suburb, Simon and Vicky's secrets begin to unravel. A secret whirlwind affair, a $20 million trust fund about to come due, a decades-long grudge and obsession with revenge. These are just a few of the lies that make up the complex web, and they will have devastating consequences. And while both Vicky and Simon are liars, Just who exactly is conning who? Part Gone Girl and part Strangers on a Train. Look Closer is a wild rollercoaster of a read that will have you questioning everything you think you know. While the history books are filled with tales of obsessive visionary geniuses who remade the world in their images with sheer, almost irrational force, I've found that history is also made by individuals who fought their egos at every turn, who eschewed the spotlight, and who put their higher goals above their desire for recognition. Luis Lu Elizondo is a former senior intelligence official and special agent who was recruited into a strange and highly sensitive U.S. government program to investigate UAP incursions into sensitive military installations and airspace. To accomplish his mission, Elizondo had to rely on decades of experience gained working some of America's most sensitive and classified programs. Even then, he was not prepared for what he would learn and the truth about the government's long shadowy involvement in UAP investigations, and the lengths officials would take to keep them a secret. The stakes could not be higher. Imminent is a first-hand, revelatory account inside the Pentagon's most closely guarded secret, and a call to action to confront humanity's greatest existential questions. At its core is a dead zone, devoid of life, where government agencies crash their obsolete satellites and space stations, confident they won't harm a soul. When the International Space Station suffers a catastrophic failure and plummets through the atmosphere, it's here that mission specialist Julie Rohr, an astrobiologist studying living space dust called Xylem, finds herself marooned. Julie's only hope for rescue lies in the hands of her estranged father, Dr. Finn Mattern, a renowned mycologist. Plucked from the depths of the Amazon rainforest, Finn is thrust into a daring rescue mission alongside a team of specialists. Their destination: an impossible island at the center of Point Nemo, an island that shouldn't exist composed of xylem. The island is a living enigma, giving birth to strange and terrifying creatures, each generation more evolved and deadly than the last. As the team delves deeper into the island's alien mysteries, they find themselves in a race against time. The island is moving. If it escapes the dead zone and reaches fertile waters, nothing in humanity's arsenal will be able to stop the invasive species from colonizing and remaking the world. With their team dwindling and the stakes rising, Finn and Julie must confront their past and face an unthinkable choice. To save humanity, a sacrifice must be made. A life exchanged for the world. The burden of survival and the weight of their family's legacy falls on their shoulders. Point Nemo by New York Times and #1 Audible best-selling author Jeremy Robinson is a chilling journey into the unknown, a tale of sacrifice and survival that blurs the line between science fiction and horror. It's a testament to the lengths a parent will go to protect their child, and a stark reminder of our fragile place in the universe. Young playwright Melina Green has just written a new work inspired by the life of her Elizabethan ancestor Emilia Bassano. But seeing it performed is unlikely in a theater world where the playing field isn't level for women. As Melina wonders if she dares risk failure again, her best friend takes the decision out of her hands and submits the play to a festival under a male pseudonym. In 1581, young Emilia Bassano is a ward of English aristocrats. Her lessons on languages, history, and writing have endowed her with a sharp wit and a gift for storytelling. But like most women of her day, she is allowed no voice of her own. Forced to become a mistress to the Lord Chamberlain, who oversees all theater productions in England, Emilia sees firsthand how the words of playwrights can move an audience. She begins to form a plan to secretly bring a play of her own to the stage by paying an actor named William Shakespeare to front her work. Told in intertwining timelines by any other name, a sweeping tale of ambition, courage, and desire centers two women who are determined to create something beautiful, despite the prejudices they face. Should a writer do whatever it takes to see her story live on, no matter the cost? This remarkable novel, rooted in primary historical sources, ensures the name Emilia Bassano will no longer be forgotten. "You must be our new neighbors," Mrs. Lowell gushes and waves across the picket fence. I clutch my daughter's hand and smile back, but the second Mrs. Lowell sees my husband, a strange expression crosses her face. In that moment I make a promise. We finally have a family home. My past is far, far behind us, and I'll do anything to keep it that way. I used to clean other people's houses. Now, I can't believe this home is actually mine. The charming kitchen, the quiet cul-de-sac, the huge yard where my kids can play. My husband and I saved for years to give our children the life they deserve. Even though I'm wary of our new neighbor, Mrs. Lowell, when she invites us over for dinner, it's our chance to make friends. Her maid opens the door wearing a white apron, her hair in a tight bun. I know exactly what it's like to be in her shoes, but her cold stare gives me chill. The Lowell's maid isn't the only strange thing on our street. I'm sure I see a shadowy figure watching us. My husband leaves the house late at night, and when I meet a woman who lives across the way, her words chill me to the bone. Be careful of your neighbors. Did I make a terrible mistake moving my family here? I thought I'd left my darkest secrets behind. But could this quiet suburban street be the most dangerous place of all? From New York Times, USA Today, and Wall Street Journal, best-selling author Frida McFadden, comes the next installment of the unbelievably twisty, tension-packed, and globally best-selling Housemaid series. This book can be enjoyed as a standalone listen, and once you start, it will have you up all night until the final explosive twist. If there's one thing Harry Potter fans have in common, apart from impeccably good taste, it's question. So many questions. From the simple details that perplex us all. Was Professor Umbridge always that awful? Why don't wizards just use phones? To the personal details that bring us closer to J.K. Rowling's writing process. From her least favorite school subject and its impact on Professor Snape's career, to the personal significance of King's Cross, and why it's always where the Hogwarts Express departs. This is a veritable treasure trove of answers. Narrated by Ivana Lynch, Hugh Corshi, Finlay Robertson, and Lara Saalha, and with an exclusive foreword by Ivana Lynch, this spellbinding audiobook is essential listening for any Harry Potter aficionado. The articles in From the Wizarding Archive were originally written by J.K. Rowling for Pottermore.com, and remain free to read in English on wizardingworld.com. 35 of the 80 articles were originally published across 3 Pottermore Presents ebooks. This is the first time any of the content has been available in audio format. 1 toxic family, 8 suspicious guests. Everyone is guilty. But who is a killer? For GBI investigator Will Trent and medical examiner Sarah Linton, McAlpine Lodge seems like the ideal getaway to celebrate their honeymoon. Set on a gorgeous, off-the-grid mountaintop property, it's the perfect place to unplug and reconnect, until a bone-chilling scream cuts through the night. A murderer in their midst. Mercy McAlpine, the manager of the lodge, is dead. With a vicious storm raging and the one access road to the property washed out, the murderer must be someone on the mountain. But as Will and Sarah investigate the McAlpine family and the other guests, they realize that everyone here is lying. Lying about their past, lying to their family, lying to themselves. Who killed Mercy McAlpine? It soon becomes clear that normal rules don't apply at McAlpine Lodge, and Will and Sarah are going to have to watch their step at every turn. Trapped on the resort, they must untangle a decades-old web of secrets to discover what happened to Mercy. And with the killer poised to strike again, the trip of a lifetime becomes a race against the clock. The path of ascension. 7 deep inside Mancala's depths, Matt, Liz, Aster, and Suzanne just fought one of the strongest monsters they have ever encountered. But their delve isn't over yet. 3 floors remain, and each promises to push them past their perceived limits. There is no escape. There is no higher tier to get them out of trouble. The only things they can rely on are themselves and the rest of the party. Don't miss Book 7 of this action-packed fantasy adventure that blends everything you love about lit RPG with Xianxia. About the series, this is a mix between lit RPG and Xianxia. It's like a car that looks like a lit RPG with dungeons and skills, but the interior and engine are all Xianxia. It features a magic system and progression system that are logically and internally consistent, as well as realistic fight scenes and irrational MC. Jason and his companions manage to forestall the inexorable undead, but their battle is far from done. Both they and their enemies are scattered across a strange realm, one that someone must conquer if anyone is to get out alive. Territory by territory, factions fight to reunite their people and conquer the realm. Jason must contend with alliances he doesn't want, friends he cannot find, and enemies ranging from angelic despots to the power of an undead god. He must face a realm that has been warped by his own mind, and find a way to save a friend whose sacrifice got them this far. To have any chance against the enemies waiting for him, Jason will have to confront the power inside himself that he's been unwilling to face, fearful of what he'll become. Only by accepting the destiny that looms over him will he have the strength to face his foes, with no promise even that will be enough to defeat them. From a former Marine and Yale Law School graduate, a powerful account of growing up in a poor Rust Belt town that offers a broader, probing look at the struggles of America's white working class. Hillbilly Elegy is a passionate and personal analysis of a culture in crisis, that of white working class Americans. The decline of this group, a demographic of our country that has been slowly disintegrating over 40 years, has been reported on with growing frequency and alarm, but has never before been written about as searingly from the inside. J.D. Vance tells the true story of what a social, regional, and class decline feels like when you were born with it hung around your neck. The Vance family story begins hopefully in post-war America. J.D.'s grandparents were dirt poor and in love, and moved north from Kentucky's Appalachia region to Ohio, in the hopes of escaping the dreadful poverty around them. They raised a middle-class family, and eventually their grandchild, the author, would graduate from Yale Law School, a conventional marker of their success in achieving generational upward mobility. But as the family saga of Hillbilly Elegy plays out, we learn that this is only the short, superficial version. Vance's grandparents, his aunt, his uncle, his sister, and most of all his mother, struggled profoundly with the demands of their new middle-class life, and were never able to fully escape the legacy of abuse, alcoholism, poverty, and trauma, so characteristic of their part of America. Vance piercingly shows how he himself still carries around the demons of their chaotic family history. A deeply moving memoir with its share of humor and vividly colorful figures, Hillbilly Elegy is the story of how upward mobility really feels. And it is an urgent and troubling meditation on the loss of the American dream for a large segment of this country. Deborah Harkness first introduced the world to Diana Bishop, an Oxford scholar and witch, and vampire geneticist Matthew de Clermont in A Discovery of Witches. Drawn to each other despite long-standing taboos, these two otherworldly beings found themselves at the center of a battle for a lost, enchanted manuscript known as Ashmole 782. Since then, they have fallen in love, traveled to Elizabethan England, dissolved the covenant between the three species, and awoken the dark powers within Diana's family line. Now, Diana and Matthew receive a formal demand from the congregation. They must test the magic of their 7-year-old twins, Pip and Rebecca. Concerned with their safety and desperate to avoid the same fate that led her parents to spellbind her, Diana decides to forge a different path for her family's future, and answers a message from a great aunt she never knew existed, Gwyneth Proctor, whose invitation simply reads, "It's time you came home, Diana." On the hallowed ground of Ravenswood, the Proctor family home, and under the tutelage of Gwyneth, a talented witch grounded in higher magic, a new era begins for Diana, a confrontation with her family's dark past, and a reckoning for her own desire for even greater power if she can let go, finally, of her fear of wielding it. In this stunning new novel, grand in scope, Deborah Harkness deepens the beloved world of All Souls, with powerful new magic and long-hidden secrets, and the path Diana finds at Ravenswood leads to the most consequential moments yet in this cherished series. Early morning, August 1975, a camp counselor discovers an empty bunk. Its occupant, Barbara Van Laar, has gone missing. Barbara isn't just any 13-year-old. She's the daughter of the family that owns the summer camp and employs most of the region's residents. And this isn't the first time a Van Laar child has disappeared. Barbara's older brother similarly vanished 14 years ago, never to be found. As a panicked search begins, a thrilling drama unfolds, chasing down the layered secrets of the Van Laar family and the blue-collar community working in its shadow. Moore's multi-threaded story invites listeners into a rich and gripping dynasty of secrets and second chances. It is Liz Moore's most ambitious and wide-reaching novel yet. The master of the techno-blockbuster joins forces with the master of the modern thriller to create the most anticipated mega bestseller in years. Michael Crichton, creator of Jurassic Park, Twister, and Westworld, had a passion project he'd been pursuing for years. Ahead of his untimely passing in 2008, knowing how special it was, his wife, Sherry Crichton, held back his notes in the partial manuscript until she found the right author to complete it, James Patterson, the world's most popular storyteller. 1975 is a time of change in America. The Vietnam War is ending. Muhammad Ali is fighting Joe Frazier. And in the small town of Montclair, Missouri, girls are disappearing. When the daughter of a wealthy family is targeted, the most unlikely hero emerges: Patch, a local boy who saves the girl. and, in doing so, leaves heartache in his wake. Patch and those who love him soon discover that the line between triumph and tragedy has never been finer, and that their search for answers will lead them to truths that could mean losing one another. A missing person mystery, a serial killer thriller, a love story, a unique twist on each. Chris Whitaker has written a novel about what lurks in the shadows of obsession and the blinding light of hope. Washington, D.C., 1950. Everyone keeps to themselves at Briarwood House, a down-at-the-heels all-female boarding house in the heart of the nation's capital, where secrets hide behind white picket fences. But when the lovely, mysterious widow Grace March moves into the attic room, she draws her oddball collection of neighbors into unlikely friendship. Poised English beauty Fliss, whose facade of perfect wife and mother covers gaping inner wounds, policeman's daughter Nora, who finds herself entangled with a shadowy gangster, frustrated baseball star Beatrice, whose career has come to an end along with the Women's Baseball League of World War II, and poisonous, gung-ho Arlene, who has thrown herself into McCarthy's Red Scare. Grace's weekly attic room dinner parties and window-brewed sun tea become a healing balm on all their lives, but she hides a terrible secret of her own. When a shocking act of violence tears the house apart, the Briar Club women must decide once and for all, who is the true enemy in their midst? Capturing the paranoia of the McCarthy era and evoking the changing roles for women in post-war America, The Briar Club is an intimate and thrilling novel of secrets and loyalty put to the test.
The company of the ring is torn asunder. Frodo and Sam continue their journey alone down the great river Anduin, alone, that is, save for the mysterious creeping figure that follows wherever they go. This continues the classic tale begun in The Fellowship of the Ring, which reaches its awesome climax in The Return of the King.
From the Hugo Award-winning and New York Times best-selling author of The Expanse, James S. A. Corey, comes the start of a monumental new space opera series. How humanity came to the planet called Angian is lost in the fog of history, but that history is about to end. The Carrickspard Empire, part Hive, has waged wars of conquest for centuries, destroying or enslaving species across the galaxy in its conflict with an ancient and deathless enemy. When they descend on the isolated world of Angian, the human population is abased, slaughtered, and put in chains. The best and brightest are abducted, taken to the Carrick's World Palace to join prisoners from 1,000 other species. Daffod Alker, assistant to a prestigious scientist, is captured along with his team. Even he doesn't suspect that his peculiar insight and skills will be the key to seeing past their captor's terrifying agenda. Swept up in a conflict beyond his control and vaster than his imagination, Daffod is poised to become humanity's champion and its betrayer. This is where his story begins.
Contract killer Lachlan Kane wants a quiet life working in his leather studio and forgetting all about his traumatic past. But when he botches a job for his boss's biggest client, Lachlan knows he'll never claw his way out of the underworld. At least, not until songbird Lark Montague offers him a deal: use his skills to hunt down a killer and she'll find a way to secure his freedom. The catch? He has to marry her first. And they can't stand each other. Indie singer-songwriter Lark is the sunshine and glitter that burns through every cloud and clings to every crevice that Lachlan Kane tries to hide inside. The surly older brother of her best friend's soulmate, Lachlan thinks she's just a privileged princess, but Lark has plenty of secrets hiding in the shadows of her bright light. With her formidable family in a tailspin and her best friend's happiness on the line, she's willing to make a vow to the man she's determined to hate, no matter how tempting the broody assassin might be. As Lachlan and Lark navigate the dark world that binds them together, it becomes impossible to discern their fake marriage from a real one. But it's not just familiar dangers that haunt them. There's another phantom lurking on their doorstep. And this one has come for blood. Honor and betrayal fuel a cast-shattering revolution in the action-packed new novel from the #1 New York Times best-selling author of the Red Rising trilogy. 10 years after the events of Morning Star, Darrow and the Rising are battling the remaining Gold Loyalist forces, and are closer than ever to abolishing the color-coded caste system of society for good. But new foes will emerge from the shadows to threaten the imperfect victory Darrow and his friends have earned. Pierce Brown expands the size and scope of his impressive Red Rising universe with new characters, enemies, and conflicts among the stars. Lila is in a bit of a rut. Her postdoctoral research has fizzled out, she's pretty sure they won't extend her contract, and things with her boyfriend, Nico, an aspiring actor, aren't going great. When the opportunity arises for Nico to join the cast of a new reality TV show, One Perfect Couple, she decides to try out with him. A whirlwind audition process later, Lila finds herself whisked off to a tropical paradise with Nico, boating through the Indian Ocean towards Ever After Island, where the two of them will compete against 4 other couples, Bayer and Angel, Dan and Santana, Joel and Romy, and Connor and Zana, in order to win a cash prize. But not long after they arrive on the deserted island, things start to go wrong. After the first challenge leaves everyone rattled and angry, an overnight storm takes matters from bad to worse. Cut off from the mainland by miles of ocean, deprived of their phones, and unable to contact the crew that brought them there, the group must band together for survival. As tensions run high and fresh water runs low, Lila finds that this game show is all too real, and the stakes are life or death. A fast-paced, spellbinding thriller rife with intrigue and characters that feel so true to life, this novel proves yet again that Ruth Ware is the queen of psychological suspense. Darrow would have lived in peace, but his enemies brought him war. The gold overlords demanded his obedience, hanged his wife, and enslaved his people. But Darrow is determined to fight back. Risking everything to transform himself and breach gold society, Darrow has battled to survive the cutthroat rivalries that breed society's mightiest warriors, climbed the ranks, and waited patiently to unleash the revolution that will tear the hierarchy apart from within. Finally, the time has come. But devotion to honor and hunger for vengeance run deep on both sides. Darrow and his comrades in arms face powerful enemies without scruple or mercy. Among them are some Darrow once considered friends. To win, Darrow will need to inspire those shackled in darkness to break their chains, unmake the world their cruel masters have built, and claim a destiny too long denied and too glorious to surrender. Some of the smartest commentary about what's happening in America is coming from a comedian, this comedian being Bill Maher. If you want to understand what's wrong with this country, it turns out that one of the best informed and most thought-provoking analysts is this very funny pothead. The book was inspired by the editorial Bill delivers at the end of each episode of Real Time. These editorials are direct-to-camera sermons about culture, politics, and what's happening in the world. To put this book together, Maher reviewed more than a decade of his editorials, rewriting, reimagining, and updating them, and adding new material to speak exactly to the moment we're in. Free speech, cops, drugs, race, religion, the generations, cancel culture, the parties, the media, showbiz, romance, health, Maher covers it all. The result is a hugely entertaining work of commentary about American culture in the tradition of Mark Twain, Will Rogers, and H.L. Mencken. For a decade, Darrow led a revolution against the corrupt color-coded society. Now, outlawed by the very republic he founded, he wages a rogue war on Mercury in hopes that he can still salvage the dream of EO. But as he leaves death and destruction in his wake, is he still the hero who broke the chains? Or will another legend rise to take his place? Lysander O'Loon, the heir in exile, has returned to the core. Determined to bring peace back to mankind at the edge of his sword, he must overcome or unite the treacherous gold families of the core and face down Darrow over the skies of war-torn Mercury. But theirs are not the only fates hanging in the balance. Luna Mustang, sovereign of the Republic, campaigns to unite the Republic behind her husband. Beset by political and criminal enemies, can she outwit her opponents in time to save him? Once a Red refugee, young Lyria now stands accused of treason, and her only hope is a desperate escape with unlikely new allies. Abducted by a new threat to the Republic, Pax and Electra, the children of Darrow and Severo must trust in Ephraim, a thief, for their salvation, and Ephraim must look to them for his chance at redemption. As alliances shift, break, and reform and power is seized, lost, and reclaimed, every player is at risk in a game of conquest that could turn the Rising into a new dark age. In this new thriller on Camino Island, popular bookseller Bruce Cable tells Mercer Mann an irresistible tale that might be her next novel. A giant resort developer is using its political muscle and deep pockets to claim ownership of a deserted island between Florida and Georgia. Only the last living inhabitant of the island, Lovely Jackson, stands in its way. What the developer doesn't know is that the island has a remarkable history, and locals believe it is cursed, and the past is never the past. Writer Carrie Colts hopes a move to Montauk will be a rejuvenating change of pace for her family. The last thing she expects to see is her former college roommate on her doorstep. Newly widowed, and with a daughter of her own, Maya would love to reconnect. As a gesture to an old friend in mourning, Carrie extends an invitation to stay. Just for a few days. After all, there are reasons that Carrie and Maya are estranged. Carrie soon regrets her impulsive offer. Someone has taken a pair of scissors to her college yearbook. Her herb garden is destroyed. She's starting to receive sinister texts. And Maya is making herself a little too much at home. What does Maya really want? What is she hiding? Carrie's afraid to ask. Because Maya knows all her secrets, and exposing them comes with a price Carrie can't afford to pay. Ted Bundy, John Wayne Gacy, Jeffrey Dahmer. The names of notorious serial killers are usually well known, they echo in the news and in public consciousness. But most people have never heard of Israel Keyes, one of the most ambitious and terrifying serial killers in modern history. The FBI considered his behavior unprecedented. Described by a prosecutor as a force of pure evil, Keyes was a predator who struck all over the United States. He buried kill kits, cash, weapons, and body disposal tools in remote locations across the country. Over the course of 14 years, Keyes would fly to a city, rent a car, and drive thousands of miles in order to use his kits. He would break into a stranger's house, abduct his victims in broad daylight, and kill and dispose of them in mere hours. And then he would return home to Alaska, resuming life as a quiet, reliable construction worker devoted to his only daughter. When journalist Maureen Callahan first heard about Israel Keyes in 2012, she was captivated by how a killer of this magnitude could go undetected by law enforcement for over a decade, and so began a project that consumed her for the next several years, uncovering the true story behind how the FBI ultimately caught Israel Keyes, and trying to understand what it means for a killer like Keyes to exist. A killer who left a path of monstrous, randomly committed crimes in his wake, many of which remain unsolved to this day. American Predator is the ambitious culmination of years of interviews with key figures in law enforcement and in Keyes' life, and research uncovered from classified FBI files. Callahan takes us on a journey into the chilling, nightmarish mind of a relentless killer, and to the limitations of traditional law enforcement. #1 New York Times best-selling author Harlan Coben set huge sales records with last year's 6 years, and he's poised to do it again in his next breathtaking standalone thriller. Harlan Coben, author of 6 consecutive instant #1 New York Times bestsellers and a total of 24 award-winning, best-selling, and internationally acclaimed novels, returns with another ripped from real-life thriller full of impossibly high emotional stakes and the real-to-life characters for which he has become famous. The epic, multi-million-selling science fiction series continues. The second Dune installment explores new developments on the planet Arrakis, with its intricate social order and strange, threatening environment. Dune Messiah picks up the story of the man known as Muad'Dib, heir to a power unimaginable, bringing to fruition an ambition of unparalleled scale, the centuries-old scheme to create a superbeing who reigns not in the heavens but among men. But the question is, do all paths of glory lead to the grave? Do you want to build a budget that actually works for you? Are you ready to transform your relationship with money? This New York Times bestseller has already helped millions of people just like you learn how to develop everyday money-saving habits with the help of America's favorite personal finance expert, Dave Ramsey. By now, you've already heard all of the nutty get-rich-quick schemes and the fiscal diet fads that leave you with a lot of quirky ideas but not a penny in your pocket. If you're tired of the lies and sick of the false promises, Dave is here to provide practical, long-term help. The Total Money Makeover is the simplest, most straightforward game plan for completely changing your finances. And, best of all, these principles are based on results, not pie-in-the-sky fantasies. This is the financial reset you've been looking for. The Total Money Makeover Updated and Expanded will give you the tools and the encouragement you need to design a surefire plan for paying off all debt, from your cars to your home and everything in between, using the debt snowball method. Break bad habits and make lasting changes when it comes to your relationship with money. Recognize the 10 most dangerous money myths. Set aside enough money to pay for unexpected expenses and emergencies. Save enough money for your retirement. Live like no one else, so later you can live and give like no one else. This new edition of the Total Money Makeover Updated and Expanded includes new content that will help you tackle marriage conflict, college debt, and so much more. Zach returns from the perennial vastness, finding Earth already embroiled in war. The Cantanu cult pouring into the sector, determined to make it theirs. The system is fanning the flames with treasures and opportunities, using the conflict to choose candidates for its trial. A strong arm and a sharp axe isn't enough to keep Earth safe. Zach has to secure the resources and alliances necessary for his empire, all while dealing with the fallout of Leandra's schemes. But who can he trust? The appearance of the Ultim Quartz has set the multiverse astir. Powerful outsiders are flocking to Zeshia in search of fortune, where the local sealbearers are prey. One wrong move and it's over. In the distant past, a time of magic and swordplay, there lived Harold, the mightiest lich of all, a master of arcane sciences, and a challenger of gods. After reaching the pinnacle of his power and finding it surprisingly bland, Harold waged a cataclysmic war against the gods, aiming to shatter the very system that confined him. Then, he took a nap. An incredibly long nap that ends with a jolt, thanks to an unwitting adventurer who trips into Harold's crypt. Blinking into the torchlight, Harold finds a world he barely recognizes. No more swords and sorcery, but a universe buzzing with cultivation, celestial sex, and far too many pretentious dialogues about the path to godhood. Harold is no naive cultivator. He's an ancient lich with a single ambition, to slide back into his uninterrupted eternal slumber. But the cacophony of quarreling sects and smug martial artists seems determined to keep him awake. Undeterred, the sleep-deprived overlord is ready to confront this brave new world. After all, no aspiring deity, no grandiose sect, and certainly no self-righteous martial artist is going to rob him of his beauty sleep. Reality is broken. At first, it looks like a disease. An epidemic that spreads through no known means, driving its victims mad with memories of a life they never lived. But the force that's sweeping the world is no pathogen. It's just the first shock wave, unleashed by a stunning discovery, and what's in jeopardy is not our minds but the very fabric of time itself. In New York City, Detective Barry Sutton is closing in on the truth, and in a remote laboratory, neuroscientist Helena Smith is unaware that she alone holds the key to this mystery, and the tools for fighting back. Together, Barry and Helena will have to confront their enemy before they, and the world, are trapped in a loop of ever-growing chaos. Dora Conroy has a passion for antiques and any other rarities she can acquire for her quaint Philadelphia shop. A seasoned dealer, she knows all the tricks of the trade. But she is unprepared for the deadly consequences when she purchases a few curiosities at an auction and unknowingly brings home a priceless cache that makes her the target of an international criminal. Entwined in a reckless chase, Dora turns to her new neighbor, Jed Skimmerhorn, a cop who's turned in his badge and whose desire for lovely Dora puts him back in the line of fire. Fighting their attraction while falling in love, they find that hidden riches can have a most ordinary facade. And that possession can be a lethal obsession. A shocking discovery on a honeymoon in paradise changes the lives of a picture-perfect couple in this taut psychological thriller debut, for listeners of Ruth Ware, Paula Hawkins, and Sherry Lapina. If you could make one simple choice that would change your life forever, would you? Aaron is a documentary filmmaker on the brink of a professional breakthrough, Mark a handsome investment banker with big plans. Passionately in love, they embark on a dream honeymoon to the tropical island of Bora Bora, where they enjoy the sun, the sand, and each other. Then, while scuba diving in the crystal blue sea, they find something in the water. Could the life of your dreams be the stuff of nightmares? Suddenly the newlyweds must make a dangerous choice, to speak out or to protect their secret. After all, if no one else knows, who would be hurt? Their decision will trigger a devastating chain of events. Have you ever wondered how long it takes to dig a grave? Wonder no longer. Catherine Steadman's enthralling voice shines throughout this spellbinding debut novel. With piercing insight and fascinating twists, Something in the Water challenges the reader to confront the hopes we desperately cling to, the ideals we're tempted to abandon, and the perfect lies we tell ourselves. Abby. I'm falling for the father of the baby I'm carrying. The problem is, it's not my baby. And the broody widower is not looking for a long-term partner. As a surrogate, the deal was that I'd only be in England long enough to give birth. At first, the man seemed as pretentious as his name, Sigmund Benedictus. He and I butted heads. Sig challenged my intentions, accused me of just wanting to do this for the money. Gradually, he learned to trust me. He even became protective. Over time, our heated animosity turned into fiery chemistry. I was falling in love with him, but my time here had a limit. I needed to protect my heart from the devastatingly gorgeous older man who'd end up breaking it. Sig. When my in-laws told me they wanted to use my dead wife's eggs to conceive a grandchild, I wasn't immediately on board. They swore that on her deathbed Brittany told them it was what she wanted, but only if I fathered the baby. Her parents insisted they would be the ones to raise it. Against my better judgment, I agreed. I vowed to keep my heart out of it, though. I'd continue to pretend it wasn't happening and live the empty, single life I'd become accustomed to the past 5 years since Brittany died. And despite the fact that a certain younger American named Abby Knickerbocker had awakened things inside me that I thought were long dead, I most certainly wouldn't fall in love with the surrogate. You like it darker? Fine, so do I, writes Stephen King in the afterword to this magnificent new collection of 12 stories that delve into the darker part of life, both metaphorical and literal. King has, for half a century, been a master of the form, and these stories, about fate, mortality, luck, and the folds in reality where anything can happen, are as rich and riveting as his novels, both weighty in theme and a huge pleasure to digest. King writes to feel the exhilaration of leaving ordinary day-to-day life behind, and in You Like It Darker, listeners will feel that exhilaration too, again and again. Two Talented Bastards explores the long-hidden secret of how the eponymous gentlemen got their skills. In Danny Coughlin's Bad Dream, a brief and unprecedented psychic flash appends dozens of lives, Danny's most catastrophically. In Rattlesnakes, a sequel to Cujo, a grieving widower travels to Florida for respite and instead receives an unexpected inheritance, with major strings attached. In The Dreamers, a taciturn Vietnam vet answers a job ad and learns that there are some corners of the universe best left unexplored. The Answer Man asks if prescience is good luck or bad and reminds us that a life marked by unbearable tragedy can still be meaningful. King's ability to surprise, amaze, and bring us both terror and solace remains unsurpassed. Each of these stories holds its own thrills, joys, and mysteries, each feels iconic. You like it darker? You got it. A night spent sleeping on dirt and leaves is not how Claire Matchett expected to spend her vacation. She thought this would be a break from the stresses of work and raising her young children. A chance to repair her damaged marriage. A week of hiking and hot tubs with 2 other couple friends. It sounded like heaven. Then Claire's minivan breaks down on a lonely dirt road. With no cell reception, the group has no choice but to hike the rest of the way to their hotel. But it turns out the woods aren't as easy to navigate as they thought. Hours later, they are lost, hopelessly lost. And as they navigate deeper into the woods, the members of their party are struck down mysteriously one by one. Has a wild animal been hunting them? Or is the hunter one of them? But as more time passes, one thing becomes clear: only one of them will return home alive. Rosie Belmont has been driving me wild for years. The good kind of wild. The bad kind of wild. But mostly the kind of wild that comes with wanting your best friend's little sister and knowing you can't have her. After living in the city, she comes blasting back into Rose Hill like a storm. Beautiful, messy, and chaotic. And one wide-eyed desperate plea for a job is all it takes for me to hire her. Forbes may have labeled me the world's hottest billionaire, but all I care about is opening my new recording studio. Something that comes to a screeching halt when I end up face to face with a young girl who claims I'm her biological father. Now I spend my days balancing business with parenting a sullen 12-year-old, all while trying desperately to keep my hands the hell off my best friend's little sister. I vow to keep Rosie at arm's length. I try to stick to scowls and grumpy one-liners. But with her verbal sparring is merely foreplay, friction that turns to blistering heat. I know damn well I shouldn't cross that line. But shouldn't and can't are two very different things. And the only thing I truly can't do is resist her. It was easy for Elizabeth. She married the man she loved, bore him 2 children and made a home for him, which was the envy of their friends. It was harder for Ruth. She married Elizabeth's son and then found that, somehow, she could never quite measure up. Isolation, deceit and betrayal fill the gaps between the 2 individual women and between their different worlds. In this complex thriller, Philippa Gregory deploys all her insight into what women want and what women fear, as Ruth confronts the shifting borders of her own sanity, laying bare the comfortable conventions of rural England. This spine-tingling story pulses with suspense until the whiplash double twist of the denouement. Meredith and Nina Whitson are as different as sisters can be. One stayed at home to raise her children and manage the family business. The other followed a dream and traveled the world to become a famous photojournalist. But when their beloved father falls ill, these 2 estranged sisters will find themselves together again, standing alongside their disapproving mother, Anya, who even now offers no comfort to her daughters. On his deathbed, their father extracts a promise: Anya will tell her daughters a story. It is one she began years ago and never finished. This time she will tell it all the way to the end. The tale their mother tells them is unlike anything they've heard before, a captivating, mysterious love story that spans more than 60 years and moves from frozen, war-torn Leningrad to modern-day Alaska. Nina's obsession to uncover the truth will send them all on an unexpected journey into their mother's past, where they will discover a secret so shocking, it shakes the foundation of their family and changes who they believe they are. Mesmerizing from beginning to end, Winter Garden is that rarest of novels, at once an epic love story and an intimate portrait of women poised at the crossroads of their lives. Evocative, lyrically written, and ultimately uplifting, it will haunt the listener long after the last word is spoken. In every life, there is a turning point. A moment so tremendous, so sharp and breathtaking, that one knows one's life will never be the same. For Michael Sterling, London's most infamous rake, that moment came the first time he laid eyes on Francesca Bridgerton. After a lifetime of chasing women, of smiling slyly as they chased him, of allowing himself to be caught but never permitting his heart to become engaged, he took one look at Francesca Bridgerton and fell so fast and hard into love it was a wonder he managed to remain standing. Unfortunately for Michael, however, Francesca's surname was to remain Bridgerton for only a mere 36 hours longer. The occasion of their meeting was, lamentably, a supper celebrating her imminent wedding to his cousin. But that was then. Now Michael is the Earl and Francesca is free, but still she thinks of him as nothing other than her dear friend and confidant. Michael dares not speak to her of his love, until one dangerous night, when she steps innocently into his arms and passion proves stronger than even the most wicked of secrets. The twist of a knife. The birth of a legend. Step into the world of the #1 best-selling Throne of Glass series, by Sarah J. Maas with this collection of prequel novellas. Selena Sardothian is her kingdom's most feared assassin. Though she works for the powerful Assassins' Guild and its scheming master, Arobin Hamel, she yields to no one and trusts only her fellow killer for hire, Sam. But when Arobin dispatches her on missions that take her from remote islands to hostile deserts, Selena finds herself acting independently of his wishes and questioning her own allegiance. If she hopes to escape Arabin's clutches, Selena will have to put her faith in her wits and her blade, knowing that if she fails, she'll lose not just a chance at freedom but her life. A prequel to the New York Times best-selling Throne of Glass, this collection of 5 novellas explores the history of this cunning assassin and her enthralling and deadly world. Lesson number 1: Trust no one. Eve has a good life. She wakes up each day, kisses her husband Nate, and heads off to teach math at the local high school. All is as it should be. Except, last year, Caseham High was rocked by a scandal involving a student-teacher affair, with one student, Addie, at its center. But Eve knows there is far more to these ugly rumors than meets the eye. Addie can't be trusted. She lies. She hurts people. She destroys lives. At least, that's what everyone says. But nobody knows the real Addie. Nobody knows the secrets that could destroy her, and Addie will do anything to keep it quiet. From the New York Times best-selling author Frida McFadden comes a chilling story of twisted secrets and long-awaited revenge. The only life Tress has known on her island home in an emerald green ocean has been a simple one, with the simple pleasures of collecting cups brought by sailors from faraway lands and listening to stories told by her friend Charlie. But when his father takes him on a voyage to find a bride and disaster strikes, Tress must stow away on a ship and seek the sorceress of the deadly midnight sea. Amid the spore oceans where pirates abound, can Tress leave her simple life behind and make her own place sailing a sea where a single drop of water can mean instant death? Note from Brandon: I started writing this in secret, as a novel just for my wife. She urged me to share it with the world, and alongside 3 other secret novels, with the support of readers worldwide, it grew into the biggest Kickstarter campaign of all time. I'm excited to present this first book to you at last, a different type of Brandon Sanderson story, one I wrote when there were no time constraints, no expectations, and no limits on my imagination. Come be part of the magic. What if you thought you murdered your best friend? And if everyone else thought so too? And what if the truth doesn't matter? After Lucy is found wandering the streets, covered in her best friend Savvy's blood, everyone thinks she is a murderer. Lucy and Savvy were the golden girls of their small Texas town, pretty, smart, and enviable. Lucy married a dream guy with a big ring and an even bigger new home. Savvy was the social butterfly loved by all, and if you believe the rumors, especially popular with the men in town. It's been years since that horrible night, a night Lucy can't remember anything about, and she has since moved to LA and started a new life. But now the phenomenally huge hit true crime podcast Listen for the Lie, and its too good-looking host Ben Owens, have decided to investigate Savvy's murder for the show's 2nd season. Lucy is forced to return to the place she vowed never to set foot in again to solve her friend's murder, even if she is the one that did it. The truth is out there, if we just listen. Come inside a jury room as one juror leads a starkly divided room to consensus. Join a young CIA officer as he recruits a reluctant foreign agent. And sit with an accomplished surgeon as he tries, and fails, to convince yet another cancer patient to opt for the less risky course of treatment. In Super Communicators, Charles Duhigg blends deep research and his trademark storytelling skills to show how we can all learn to identify and leverage the hidden layers that lurk beneath every conversation. Communication is a superpower, and the best communicators understand that whenever we speak, we're actually participating in one of 3 conversations: practical, what's this really about; emotional, how do we feel; and social, who are we? If you don't know what kind of conversation you're having, you're unlikely to connect. Super communicators know the importance of recognizing, and then matching, each kind of conversation, and how to hear the complex emotions, subtle negotiations, and deeply held beliefs that color so much of what we say and how we listen. Our experiences, our values, our emotional lives, and how we see ourselves and others shape every discussion, from who will pick up the kids to how we want to be treated at work. In this book, you will learn why some people are able to make themselves heard, and to hear others so clearly. With his storytelling that takes us from the writer's room of The Big Bang Theory to the couches of leading marriage counselors, Doig shows listeners how to recognize these three conversations, and teaches us the tips and skills we need to navigate them more successfully. In the end, he delivers a simple but powerful lesson: with the right tools, we can connect with anyone. Today's workers have more opportunities and mobility than any generation before. They also face unprecedented challenges, including inflation, labor and housing shortages, and climate volatility. Even the notion of retirement is undergoing a profound rethink, as our lifespans extend and our relationship with work evolves. In this environment, the tried-and-true financial advice our parents followed is no longer enough. It's time for a new playbook. In The Algebra of Wealth, Dalloway lays bare the rules of financial success in today's economy. In his characteristic unvarnished, no BS style, he explains what you need to know in order to better your chances for economic security, no matter what. You'll learn how to find and follow your talent, not your passion, when making career decisions. How to ride and optimize big economic waves, hard truth: market dynamics always trump individual achievement. What small steps you can take that pay big returns later, including diversification and tax planning. How stoicism can help you minimize spending and develop better financial habits. Bursting with practical, game-changing advice from one of the world's most popular business school professors, The Algebra of Wealth is the practical guidebook you need to win today's wealth game. Brimming with wise, game-changing advice from one of the world's most popular business school professors, The Algebra of Wealth offers a powerful framework for making the most of what opportunities come your way. 3 years ago, sports agent Myron Bollitter gave a eulogy at the funeral of his client, renowned basketball coach Greg Downing. Myron and Greg had history, initially as deeply personal rivals, and later as unexpected business associates. Myron made peace and moved on, until now, when 2 federal agents walked into his office, demanding to know where Greg Downing is. According to the agents, Greg is still alive, and has been placed at the scene of a double homicide, making him their main suspect. Shocked, Myron needs answers. Myron and Wynn, longtime friends and colleagues, set out to find the truth, but the more they discover about Greg, the more dangerous their world becomes. Secrets, lies, and a murderous conspiracy that stretches back into the past churn at the heart of Harlan Coben's blistering new novel. Anna Green thought she was marrying Liam Weston for access to subsidized family housing while at UCLA. She also thought she'd signed divorce papers when the graduation caps were tossed, and they both went on their merry ways. 3 years later, Anna is a starving artist living paycheck to paycheck, while West is a Stanford professor. He may be one of 4 heirs to the Weston Foods conglomerate, but he has little interest in working for the heartless corporation his family built from the ground up. He is interested, however, in his $100 million inheritance. There's just one catch. Due to an antiquated clause in his grandfather's will, Liam won't see a penny until he's been happily married for 5 years. Just when Liam thinks he's in the home stretch, pressure mounts from his family to see this mysterious spouse, and he has no choice but to turn to the one person he's afraid to introduce to his 1%er parents, his unpolished, not-so-ex-wife. But in the presence of his family, Liam's fears quickly shift from whether the feisty, foul-mouthed, paint-splattered Anna can play the part to whether the toxic world of wealth will corrupt someone as pure of heart as his surprisingly grounded and loyal wife. Liam will have to ask himself if the price tag on his flimsy cover story is worth losing true love that sprouted from a lie. Winifred Wynne McNulty has always been wildly independent. Not one to be coddled for her limb difference, Wynne has spent most of her life trying to prove that she can do it all on her own. And, with some minor adjustments, she's done just fine. That is until she has a one-night stand with the incredibly charming Beau, a perfect stranger. And that one night changes everything. While Beau is surprisingly elated to step up to the plate, Wynne finds herself unsure of whether she can handle this new challenge on her own or if she'll need a helping hand. Together, Wynne and Beau decide to get to know one another as friends and nothing more. But, as they both should know by now, life rarely goes according to plan. Have you ever felt stuck in a cycle of unresolved pain, playing offenses over and over in your mind? You know you can't go on living like this, but you don't know what to do next. Lisa TerKeurst has wrestled through this journey. But in surprising ways, she's discovered how to let go of bound-up resentment and overcome the resistance to forgiving people who aren't willing to make things right. With deep empathy, therapeutic insight, and rich Bible teaching coming out of more than 1,000 hours of theological study, Lisa will help you learn how to move on when the other person refuses to change and never says they're sorry. Walk through a step-by-step process to free yourself from the hurt of your past and feel less offended today. Discover what the Bible really says about forgiveness and the peace that comes from living it out right now. Identify what's stealing trust and vulnerability from your relationships so you can believe there is still good ahead. Disempower the triggers hijacking your emotions by embracing the two necessary parts. After their mother passes, 3 estranged siblings reunite to sort out her estate. Beth, the oldest, never left home. She stayed with her mom, caring for her until the very end. Nicole, the middle child, has been kept at arm's length due to her ongoing battle with a serious drug addiction. Michael, the youngest, lives out of state and hasn't been back to their small Wisconsin town since their father ran out on them 7 years before. While going through their parents' belongings, the siblings stumble upon a collection of home videos and decide to revisit those happier memories. However, the nostalgia is cut short when one of the VHS tapes reveals a night back in 1999 that none of them have any recollection of. On screen, their father appears covered in blood. What follows is a dead body and a pact between their parents to get rid of it, before the video abruptly ends. Beth, Nicole, and Michael must now decide whether to leave the past in the past or uncover the dark secret their mother took to her grave. Jack Lee is a white lawyer from Freeman County, Virginia, who has never done anything to push back against racism, until he decides to represent Jerome Washington, a black man charged with brutally killing an elderly and wealthy white couple. Doubting his decision, Lee fears that his legal skills may not be enough to prevail in a case where the odds are already stacked against both him and his client. And he quickly finds himself out of his depth when he realizes that what is at stake is far greater than the outcome of a murder trial. Desiree Dubose is a black lawyer from Chicago who has devoted her life to furthering the causes of justice and equality for everyone. She comes to Freeman County and enters a fractious and unwieldy partnership with Lee in a legal battle against the best prosecutor in the Commonwealth. Yet Dubose is also aware that powerful outside forces are at work to blunt the victories achieved by the civil rights era. Lee and Dubose could not be more dissimilar. On their own, neither one can stop the prosecution's deliberate march towards a guilty verdict and the electric chair. But together, the pair fight for what once seemed impossible, a chance for a fair trial and true justice. Over a decade in the writing, A Calamity of Souls breathes richly imagined and detailed life into a bygone era, taking the listener through a world that will seem both foreign and familiar. What if depression, anxiety, infertility, insomnia, heart disease, erectile dysfunction, type 2 diabetes, Alzheimer's, dementia, cancer, and many other health conditions that torture and shorten our lives actually have the same root cause? Our ability to prevent and reverse these conditions, and feel incredible today, is under our control and simpler than we think. The key is our metabolic function, the most important and least understood factor in our overall health. As Dr. Casey Means explains in this groundbreaking book, nearly every health problem we face can be explained by how well the cells in our body create and use energy. To live free from frustrating symptoms and life-threatening disease, we need our cells to be optimally powered so that they can create good energy, the essential fuel that impacts every aspect of our physical and mental well-being. If you are battling minor signals of bad energy inside your body, it is often a warning sign that more life-threatening illness may emerge later in life. But here's the good news: for the first time ever, we can monitor our metabolic health in great detail and learn how to improve it ourselves. Weaving together cutting-edge research and personal stories, as well as groundbreaking data from the health technology company Dr. Means founded, Good Energy offers an essential 4-week plan and explains the 5 biomarkers that determine your risk for a deadly disease. How to use inexpensive tools and technology to see inside your body and take action. Why dietary philosophies are designed to confuse us, and 6 lifelong food principles you can implement whether you're carnivore or vegan. The crucial links between sleep, circadian rhythm, and metabolism. A new framework for exercise focused on building simple movement into everyday activities. How cold and heat exposure helps build our body's resilience. Steps to navigate the medical system to get what you need for optimal health. Good Energy offers a new, cutting-edge understanding of the true cause of illness that until now has remained hidden. It will help you optimize your ability to live well and stay well at every age. Justin has a curse, and thanks to a Reddit thread, it's now all over the internet. Every woman he dates goes on to find their soulmate the second they break up. When a woman slides into his DMs with the same problem, they come up with a plan: they'll date each other and break up. Their curses will cancel each other's out, and they'll both go on to find the love of their lives. It's a bonkers idea, and it just might work. Emma hadn't planned that her next assignment as a traveling nurse would be in Minnesota, but she and her best friend agree that dating Justin is too good of an opportunity to pass up, especially when they get to rent an adorable cottage on a private island on Lake Minnetonka. It's supposed to be a quick fling, just for the summer. But when Emma's toxic mother shows up and Justin has to assume guardianship of his 3 siblings, they're suddenly navigating a lot more than they expected, including catching real feelings for each other. What if this time fate has actually brought the perfect pair together? The identity comes first. Evie Porter. Once she's given a name and location by her mysterious boss Mr. Smith, she learns everything there is to know about the town and the people in it. Then the mark, Ryan Sumner. The last piece of the puzzle is the job. Evie isn't privy to Mr. Smith's real identity, but she knows this job will be different. Ryan has gotten under her skin, and she's starting to envision a different sort of life for herself. But Evie can't make any mistakes, especially after what happened last time, because the one thing she's worked her entire life to keep clean, the one identity she could always go back to, her real identity, just walked right into this town. Evie Porter must stay one step ahead of her past while making sure there's still a future in front of her. The stakes couldn't be higher, but then, Evie has always liked a challenge. No room better defines American power and its role in the world than the White House Situation Room. And yet, none is more shrouded in secrecy and mystery. Created under President Kennedy, the Sit Room has been the epicenter of crisis management for presidents for more than 6 decades. Time and again, the decisions made within the Sit Room complex affect the lives of every person on this planet. Detailing close calls made and disasters narrowly averted, the Situation Room will take listeners through dramatic turning points in a dozen presidential administrations, including incredible minute-by-minute transcripts from the Sit Room after both Presidents Kennedy and Reagan were shot. The shocking moment when Henry Kissinger raised the military alert level to DEFCON 3 while President Nixon was drunk in the White House residence. The extraordinary scene when President Carter asked for help from secret government psychics to rescue American hostages in Iran. A vivid retelling of the harrowing hours during the 9/11 attack. New details from Obama administration officials leading up to the raid on Osama bin Laden, and a first-ever account of January 6 from the staff inside the Sit Room. The Situation Room is the definitive, past the security clearance look at the room where it happened, and the people, the famous and those you've never heard of, who have made history within its walls. If it weren't for Emma Johnson, Karen Johnson would have never become Whoopi Goldberg. Emma gave her children the loving care and wisdom they needed to succeed in life, always encouraging them to be true to themselves. When Whoopi lost her mother in 2010, and then her older brother, Clyde, 5 years later, she felt deeply alone. The only people who truly knew her were gone. Emma raised her children not just to survive, but to thrive. In this intimate and heartfelt memoir, Whoopi shares many of the deeply personal stories of their lives together for the first time. Growing up in the projects in New York City, there were trips to Coney Island, the Ice Capita, and museums, and every Christmas was a magical experience. To this day, she doesn't know how her mother was able to give them such an enriching childhood, despite the struggles they faced, and it wasn't until she was well into adulthood that Whoopi learned just how traumatic some of those struggles were. Fans of personal memoirs, such as Finding Me by Viola Davis and In Pieces by Sally Field, will be touched by Bits and Pieces, a moving tribute from a daughter to her mother, and a beautiful portrait of three people who loved each other deeply. Whoopi writes, "Not everybody gets to walk this earth with folks who let you be exactly who you are and who give you the confidence to become exactly who you want to be. So, I thought I'd share mine with you." After more than a decade of stability or improvement, the mental health of adolescents plunged in the early 2010s. Rates of depression, anxiety, self-harm, and suicide rose sharply, more than doubling on many measures. Why? In The Anxious Generation, social psychologist Jonathan Haidt lays out the facts about the epidemic of teen mental illness that hit many countries at the same time. He then investigates the nature of childhood, including why children need play and independent exploration to mature into competent, thriving adults. Haidt shows how the play-based childhood began to decline in the 1980s, and how it was finally wiped out by the arrival of the phone-based childhood in the early 2010s. He presents more than a dozen mechanisms by which this great rewiring of childhood has interfered with children's social and neurological development, covering everything from sleep deprivation to attention fragmentation, addiction, loneliness, social contagion, social comparison, and perfectionism. He explains why social media damages girls more than boys, and why boys have been withdrawing from the real world into the virtual world, with disastrous consequences for themselves, their families, and their societies. Most important, Haidt issues a clear call to action. He diagnoses the collective action problems that trap us, and then proposes 4 simple rules that might set us free. He describes steps that parents, teachers, schools, tech companies, and governments can take to end the epidemic of mental illness and restore a more humane childhood. Haidt has spent his career speaking truth backed by data in the most difficult landscapes, communities polarized by politics and religion, campuses battling culture wars, and now the public health emergency faced by Gen Z. We cannot afford to ignore his findings about protecting our children, and ourselves, from the psychological damage of a phone-based life. Daphne always loved the way her fiancé Peter told their story. How they met, on a blustery day, fell in love over an errant hat, and moved back to his lakeside hometown to begin their life together. He really was good at telling it, right up until the moment he realized he was actually in love with his childhood best friend Petra. Which is how Daphne begins her new story, stranded in beautiful Waning Bay, Michigan, without friends or family, but with a dream job as a children's librarian that barely pays the bills, and proposing to be roommates with the only person who could possibly understand her predicament, Petra's ex, Miles Nowak. Scruffy and chaotic, with a penchant for taking solace in the sounds of heartbreak love ballads, Miles is exactly the opposite of practical, buttoned-up Daphne, whose co-workers know so little about her they have a running bet that she's either FBI or in witness protection. The roommates mainly avoid one another, until one day, while drowning their sorrows, they form a tenuous friendship and a plan. If said plan also involves posting deliberately misleading photos of their summer adventures together, well, who could blame them? But it's all just for show, of course, because there's no way Daphne would actually start her new chapter by falling in love with her ex-fiancé's new fiancé's ex, right? Women can be heroes. When 20-year-old nursing student Frankie McGrath hears these words, it is a revelation. Raised in the sun-drenched, idyllic world of Southern California and sheltered by her conservative parents, she has always prided herself on doing the right thing. But in 1965, the world is changing, and she suddenly dares to imagine a different future for herself. When her brother ships out to serve in Vietnam, she joins the Army Nurse Corps and follows his path. As green and inexperienced as the men sent to Vietnam to fight, Frankie is overwhelmed by the chaos and destruction of war. Each day is a gamble of life and death, hope and betrayal. Friendships run deep and can be shattered in an instant. In war, she meets and becomes one of the lucky, the brave, the broken, and the lost. But war is just the beginning for Frankie and her veteran friends. The real battle lies in coming home to a changed and divided America, to angry protesters, and to a country that wants to forget Vietnam. The Women is the story of one woman gone to war, But it shines a light on all women who put themselves in harm's way and whose sacrifice and commitment to their country has too often been forgotten. A novel about deep friendships and bold patriotism, The Women is a richly drawn story with a memorable heroine whose idealism and courage under fire will come to define an era.
11-year-old Nico Crispus never told a lie. When the Nazis invade his home in Salonika, Greece, the trustworthy boy is discovered by a German officer, who offers him a chance to save his family. All Nico has to do is convince his fellow Jewish residents to board trains, heading to new homes, where they are promised jobs and safety. Unaware that this is all a cruel ruse, the innocent boy goes to the station platform every day and reassures the passengers that the journey is safe. But when the final train is at the station, Nico sees his family being loaded into a large boxcar crowded with other neighbors. Only after it is too late does Nico discover that he helped send the people he loved and all the others to their doom at Auschwitz. Nico never tells the truth again. In The Little Liar, his first novel set during the Holocaust, Mitch Albom interweaves the stories of Nico, his brother Sebastian, and their schoolmate Fanny, who miraculously survived the death camps, and spend years searching for Nico, who has become a pathological liar, and the Nazi officer who radically changed their lives. As the decades pass, Albom reveals the consequences of what they said, did, and endured, a moving parable that explores honesty, survival, revenge, and devotion. The Little Liar is Mitch Albom at his very best, narrated by the voice of truth itself. It is a timeless story about the harm we inflict with our deceits, and the power of love to ultimately redeem us. Spend each day trying to be a little wiser than you were when you woke up, Charles T. Munger advises in Poor Charlie's Almanac. Originally published in 2005, this compendium of 11 talks, delivered by the legendary Berkshire Hathaway vice chairman between 1986 and 2007, has become a touchstone for a generation of investors and entrepreneurs seeking to absorb the enduring wit and wisdom of one of the great minds of the 20th and 21st centuries. Edited by Peter D. Kaufman, chairman and CEO of Glenair and longtime friend of Charlie Munger, whom he calls this generation's answer to Benjamin Franklin. This abridged Stripe Press edition of Poor Charlie's Almanac features a brand new foreword by Stripe co-founder John Collison. Poor Charlie's Almanac draws on Munger's encyclopedic knowledge of business, finance, history, philosophy, physics, and ethics, and more besides, to introduce the latticework of mental models that underpin his rational and rigorous approach to life, learning, and decision-making. Delivered with Munger's characteristic sharp wit and rhetorical flair, it is an essential volume for any listener seeking to go to bed a little wiser than when they woke up. The Clone Wars have yet to erupt when GD Master Joris Kath petitions the Senate for support of a singularly ambitious undertaking. The dream of outbound flight, 6 GD Masters, 12 GD Knights, and 50,000 men, women, and children will embark aboard a gargantuan vessel, equipped for years of travel on a mission to contact intelligent life and colonize undiscovered worlds beyond the known galaxy. Unknown to the famed GD Master, the launch of the mission is secretly being orchestrated by an unlikely ally, the evil Sith Lord Darth Sidious, who has his own reasons for wanting outbound flight to move forward. Yet Darth Sidious is not the mission's most dangerous challenge. Once underway, the starship crosses paths at the edge of unknown space, with the forces of the alien Chiss Ascendancy and a brilliant mastermind named Thrawn. Even GD Knight Obi-Wan Kenobi, aboard outbound flight with his young Padawan student Anakin Skywalker, cannot help to avert disaster. What begins as a peaceful GD mission is violently transformed into an all-out war for survival against staggering odds and the most diabolical of adversaries. Georgie, back home at her estate in Ainsley, impatiently awaits the birth of her baby. But she has plenty to occupy her. Her new chef Pierre has arrived from Paris, and Sir Hubert, who owns Ainsley, is back from his latest expedition. It's time for Georgie to throw her first house party to celebrate his return and show off her new chef. The dinner party is a smashing success. Sir Mortimer Mordred, famous author of creepy gothic horror novels, is one of the guests. He recently purchased a nearby Elizabethan manor nearby, because it has a famous poison garden. After the dinner, Sir Mortimer approaches Georgie and asks to borrow her new chef for his upcoming party, and Georgie and Darcy, her dashing husband, are invited. The tour of the poison garden is fascinating, as is Sir Mortimer's laboratory. Shockingly, Just after the banquet, several of the guests become sick, and one dies, apparently poisoned by berries from the garden. But how could this be when they all ate the same meal and the same delectable dessert? Georgie has to find the culprit to save her new chef, and her own reputation all, before her bundle of joy arrives. Molly Gray is not like anyone else. With her flair for cleaning and proper etiquette, she has risen through the ranks of the glorious 5-star Regency Grand Hotel to become the esteemed head maid. But just as her life reaches a pinnacle state of perfection, her world is turned upside down when J.D. Grimthorpe, the world-renowned mystery author, drops dead, very dead, on the hotel's tea room floor. When Detective Stark, Molly's old foe, investigates the author's unexpected demise, it becomes clear that this death was murder most foul. Suspects abound, and everyone wants to know, who killed J.D. Grimthorpe? Was it Lily, the new maid in training? Or was it Serena, the author's secretary? Could Mr. Preston, the hotel's beloved doorman, be hiding something? And is Molly really as innocent as she seems? As the high-profile death threatens the hotel's pristine reputation, Molly knows she alone holds the key to unlocking the killer's identity. But that key is buried deep in her past, as long ago she knew J.D. Grimthorpe. Molly begins to comb her memory for clues, revisiting her childhood and the mysterious Grimthorpe mansion where she and her dearly departed Gran once worked side by side. With the entire hotel under investigation, Molly must solve the mystery post-haste, because if there's one thing she knows for sure, it's that secrets don't stay buried forever. In the wake of the Kajari, everything Araya once thought to be true has been destroyed. A prisoner in her own kingdom, grieving the only family she ever had, and reeling from a gutting betrayal, she no longer even knows the truth of her own blood. She's left only with one certainty: she cannot trust anyone, least of all Rain. The House of Night, too, is surrounded by enemies. Rain's own nobles are none too eager to accept a turned king, especially one who was once a slave. And the House of Blood digs its claws into the kingdom, threatening to tear it apart from the inside. When Rain offers Araya a secret alliance, taking the deal is her only chance at reclaiming her kingdom and gaining her vengeance against the lover who betrayed her. To do so, she'll need to harness a devastating ancient power intertwined with her father's greatest secrets. With enemies closing in on all sides, nothing is as it seems. As she unravels her past and faces her future, Araya finds herself forced to choose between the bloody reality of seizing power and the devastating love that could be her downfall. Full of heartbreak, redemption, bloody intrigue, and heart-pounding action, The Ashes and the Star-Cursed King is the gutting second installment of the Crowns of Nyaxia series, and the conclusion of the Nightborn duet. It is perfect for fans of From Blood and Ash and A Court of Thorns and Roses. Mike, the Situation Sorrentino gives fans the inside scoop they've been begging for with his explosive tell-all. In this whirlwind of action-packed, unbelievable stories, Mike paints a raw and uncensored picture of his rise to stardom, steep fall, and amazing renaissance, all told with unwavering honesty. Divulging everything from drug-fueled orgies to what really happened behind the scenes of reality television's most loved and dysfunctional family, Mike's book reveals all for the first time. In his familiar, straightforward voice, he hilariously tells of intoxicated run-ins with celebrities like The Rock, Robert Downey Jr., Drake, Jay Leno, Leonardo DiCaprio, David Hasselhoff, Jason Statham, Lil Wayne, Kristen Cavallari, Whoopi Goldberg, and more. Alongside the comical moments, he describes more poignant events, such as the frantic searches for opiates to sate excruciating withdrawals, including one such time in Italy, which led to the infamous wall headbutt fight with Ronnie. No punches are pulled in this unfiltered tale, relating Mike's darkest thoughts after trying heroin, going to prison, and grieving his wife's tragic miscarriages. However, like in all true redemption stories, Mike never gave up, and listeners are sure to be inspired by his determination to get clean and sober and become the man he is today. With pure candor and vulnerability, he delivers details on the mindset that got him through those dark times, and onto the enlightened, sober path he walks today. Through personal anecdotes and invaluable life lessons, Mike teaches listeners how to overcome obstacles and embrace change. From conquering personal demons to finding redemption, he proves that it's never too late to turn your life around and make the best of any situation. Get ready for a reality check like no other, and join Mike on a journey of self-discovery, resilience, and the pursuit of living your best life. Word to the wise, never become roommates with a girl you've been pining over for the better part of a year. You're probably wondering why I would do such a thing. Well, I didn't. It was my teammates. The moment they found out Blakely White was single, they took it upon themselves to play Cupid and instruct me on how I should win her over. Don't wear a shirt around her. Make her dinner. Lightly touch her shoulder when you say goodbye. I'm so flustered, so overwhelmed, so madly in love with this woman who barely notices me, that I lose control of the situation and make one huge mistake. I offer to be her fake date for a wedding, so she can make her ex jealous. That means for one whole night I get a free pass with her. I get to hold her, dance with her, kiss her, stare at her from across the room like she's my entire world because she has been for months now. But when the night comes to an end, I'm faced with two options: bring her back to my bedroom and show her how I really feel, or let her walk away, succumbing to the fact that I very well might not be her type. Am I making it worse? I think I'm making it worse. Everyone's favorite lethal secunit is back. Following the events in Network Effect, the Bereshastranza Corporation has sent rescue ships to a newly colonized planet in peril, as well as additional secunits. But if there's an ethical corporation out there, Murderbit has yet to find it. And if Bereshastranza can't have the planet, they're sure as hell not leaving without something. If that something just happens to be an entire colony of humans, well, a free workforce is a decent runner-up prize. But there's something wrong with Murderbit. It isn't running within normal operational parameters. Art's crew and the humans from Preservation are doing everything they can to protect the colonists. But with Bereshastranza's secunit-heavy persuasion teams, they're going to have to hope Murderbit figures out what's wrong with itself, and fast. Yeah, this plan is not going to work. Robert Sapolsky's Behave, his now classic account of why humans do good and why they do bad, pointed toward an unsettling conclusion. We may not grasp the precise marriage of nature and nurture that creates the physics and chemistry at the base of human behavior, but that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Now indetermined, Sapolsky takes his argument all the way, mounting a brilliant, and in his inimitable way, delightful, full-frontal assault on the pleasant fantasy that there is some separate self telling our biology what to do. Determined offers a marvelous synthesis of what we know about how consciousness works, the tight weave between reason and emotion, and between stimulus and response in the moment and over a life. One by one, Sapolsky tackles all the major arguments for free will and takes them out, heading a path through the thickets of chaos and complexity, science and quantum physics, as well as touching ground on some of the wilder shores of philosophy. He shows us that the history of medicine is in no small part the history of learning that fewer and fewer things are somebody's fault. For example, for centuries we thought seizures were a sign of demonic possession. Yet, as he acknowledges, it's very hard, and at times impossible, to uncouple from our zeal to judge others, and to judge ourselves. Sapolsky applies the new understanding of life beyond free will to some of our most essential questions around punishment, morality, and living well together. By the end, Sapolsky argues that while living our daily lives, recognizing that we have no free will is going to be monumentally difficult, doing so is not going to result in anarchy, pointlessness, and existential malaise. Instead, it will make for a much more humane world. An airport killer targeting pilots expands his scope. Alex Cross must die. Drop whatever you're doing, Detective Cross, and head to Reagan Airport. DC Metro Police Dispatch says a jet just crashed and exploded on the runway. The chief and the FBI want you and John Sampson there pronto. Cross and Sampson race to the crash site. The plane didn't fail, it was shot down by a stolen Vietnam War-era machine gun. The list of experts who can operate the weapon is short, and time before another lethal strike runs even shorter, especially for Detective Cross. Alex Cross must die. Melody Gallard may be the daughter of music royalty, but her world is far from glamorous. She spends her days restoring old books and avoiding the limelight. One awkward tabloid photo was enough, thanks. But when a producer offers her a lot of money to reunite her mother's band on live TV, Mel begins to wonder if it's time to rattle the cage, shake up her quiet life, and see him again. The only other person who could wrangle the rock and roll divas, Pete Dawkins, the lead singer's son, is Melody's opposite. The camera loves him. He could charm the pants off anyone, and his mom is not a potential cult leader. Still, they might have been best friends if not for the legendary feud that broke up the band. When they met as teenagers, Mel felt an instant spark, but it's nothing compared to the wild, intense attraction that builds as they embark on a madcap mission to convince their mothers to perform one last show. While dealing with rock star shenanigans, a 24-hour film crew, brawling Santas, and mobs of adoring fans, Mel starts to step out of her comfort zone. With Beat by her side cheering her on, she's never felt so understood. But Christmas Eve is fast approaching, and a decades-old scandal is poised to wreck everything. The Steel Birds reunion, their relationships with their mothers, and their newfound love. Joe and the dwarves are doing more than surviving in the harsh climate of Jotunheim. They're thriving. The ritualists' improvements to their defenses are paying dividends, and he's hailed as a genius for ending threats before they come into striking distance of the burgeoning city. Every day, the town expands further, allowing for more facilities, a larger population, and drawing in ever more monsters. So many beasts that the walls are no longer enough. Even worse, the upgrade to ascend to city tier came without warning, and Joe is pushed to the limit to make sure that his friends, allies, and hard work survive the onrushing waves of teeth and flesh. As the citizens of Novasheim face off against a seemingly endless horde, a legendary monster appears on the horizon. Its eyes fixed on Novasheim as it begins to cast grand workings of ice and snow. The storm isn't just brewing, it's already here. Getting everything you want out of life isn't about doing more. It's about becoming more. Hal Elrod and the Miracle Morning have helped millions of people become the person they need to be to create the life they've always wanted. Now, it's your turn. Hal's revolutionary SAVERS method is a simple, effective step-by-step process to transform your life in as little as 6 minutes per day. Silence. Reduce stress and improve mental clarity by beginning each day with peaceful, purposeful quiet. Affirmations. Reprogram your mind to overcome any fears or beliefs that are limiting your potential or causing you to suffer. Visualization. Experience the power of mentally rehearsing yourself showing up at your best each day. Exercise. Boost your mental and physical energy in as little as 60 seconds. Reading. Acquire knowledge and expand your abilities by learning from experts. Scribing. Keep a journal to deepen gratitude, gain insights, track progress, and increase your productivity by getting clear on your top priorities. This updated and expanded edition has new content, including The Miracle Evening. Optimize your bedtime and sleep to wake up every day feeling refreshed and energized for your miracle morning. The Miracle Life. Begin your path to inner freedom so you can truly be happy and learn to love the life you have, while you create the life you want. Adored by all, Britta is an ambitious waitress working at Sluggers. The popular bar holds a special place in her heart, and is a regular hangout for the Bridgeport Bandits, the local hockey club. With a half-brother on the team, Britta has a strict no-dating policy for hockey boys, but she does have a soft spot for one particular player, a beast on the ice. Sumner Mayfield is on the brink of breaking into the NHL, but time's running out. With his work visa about to expire, Sumner's only chance to stay in Bridgeport is to marry an American and get a green card. Otherwise, it's back to Canada for the defenseman. On New Year's Eve, the team begs Britta to marry Sumner that very night. Sum is embarrassed yet hopeful he's desperately in love, but Britta balks at first, until something about Sumner's soulful brown eyes and ripped physique makes her reconsider. The battle with the Iron Legion has left the last horizon battered and broken, drifting in space. Varric needs an exceptional engineer to fix his ship, and there's only one person for the job: Mel, the master ether technician. But first, they have to break her out of prison. Mel has been captured by the Advocates, a group of superpowered vigilantes who dominate their corner of the galaxy. They are led by Starhammer, an invincible champion with a personal obsession with Mel. The last horizon may be crewed by the greatest heroes in the galaxy, but even they have to be careful with Starhammer. Every time he survives a battle, he grows stronger. In another life, Varric saw the end of that road. If he lets Starhammer become too powerful, the galaxy is doomed. She describes the strength she draws from her deepest friendships, her Methodist faith, and the nearly 50 years she's been married to President Bill Clinton, all with the wisdom that comes from looking back on a full life with fresh eyes. She takes us along as she returns to the classroom as a college professor, enjoys the bonds inside the exclusive club of former First Ladies, moves past her dream of being president, and dives into new activism for women and democracy. From canoeing with an ex-Nazi trying to deprogram white supremacists to sweltering with salt farmers in the desert, trying to adapt to the climate crisis in India, Hillary brings us to the front lines of our biggest challenges. For the first time, Hillary shares the story of her operation to evacuate Afghan women to safety in the harrowing final days of America's longest war. But we also meet the brave women dissidents defying dictators around the world, gain new personal insights about her old adversary Vladimir Putin, and learn the best ways that worried parents can protect kids from toxic technology. We also hear her fervent and persuasive warning to all American voters. In the end, something lost, something gained is a testament to the idea that the personal is political, and the political is personal, providing a blueprint for what each of us can do to make our lives better. Hillary has looked at life from both sides now. In this book, she shares the latest chapter of her inspiring life, and shows us how to age with grace and keep moving forward, with grit, joy, purpose, and a sense of humor.